All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amanda Weiner. I'm an admissions manager with the MBA admissions team. So first of all, I want to start by saying thank you to Matt Cypher, the director of the Steer Center for Global Real Estate, for joining us today. I know you're very busy, so we really appreciate you coming out today and chatting with our prospective students and our applicants about what you do at the Steer Center for Global Real Estate. So with that, I'll let you kick it off. Sorry, Matt, I don't know if we can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had you on mute. My fault, guys. So you missed a very good preamble. Anyway, my name is Matt Cypher. Thank you so much for joining in, guys. I am the director of the Steer Center for Global Real Estate. We're very proud of what we've built here at Georgetown, and in this short period of time together, I think we're going to give you a little bit of that background, and the hope is then we can get together at some point in the future to get into some more detail. But we've got these slides, and I'll clearly go through the slides, but to the extent you have questions, certainly use the chat function, and we can kind of go from there. So I think I have control of the slides here, maybe, but I don't believe I do. So Amanda, maybe you can advance me to the next slide, please. Okay, so just very quickly, I thought I'd introduce just some very key people that we have at the Steer Center, and then we'll talk about exactly what the Steer Center is and why MSB and the Steer Center in terms of a real estate educational place. So the Steer Center essentially has 5 faculty members, and you can find a lot of this or all of this on the website globalrealestate.georgetown.edu. And the 4 faculty members include myself, Sunil Madan, who teaches more of the public debt curriculum, Ed Walter, who was the former CEO of Host Hotels, the largest hospitality REIT in the country, teaches the public equity, the REIT course, and a gentleman by the name of Ashesh Parekh at JBG Smith teaches the private debt course. So, and around this core faculty, we have a variety of executives and residents that are focused on helping enhance and amplify the educational experience, all of which, again, you can find on our website. But these are all professionals doing very real work and with very real companies. So I guess what I thought I could start with is just an introduction of the Steer Center and what it is. And so I get oftentimes, what is the Steer Center? And the short answer is that it's effectively all things real estate at McDonough. You could think about it very appropriately as the real estate department within the McDonough School of Business. So whether it would be undergraduate education, MBA level education, research, community outreach, whatever it might be, that all emanates out of the Steer Center for Global Real Estate. And our interface with you would be via the MBA program. So the way this typically works is prospective students or current students would enroll within our MBA level coursework as electives within your MBA curriculum. So the McDonough MBA does not have majors at this point, although I would suggest that we, with the number of courses that we have, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you effectively are able to concentrate, if you will, in real estate as well as other disciplines at McDonough. But the Steer Center, as I said, is essentially all things real estate. So, one of the things that I think you should be thinking about is, well, why am I going back to school? I don't know if you're in the business world in terms of a real estate profession or not, but the MBA experience is expensive, obviously, it goes without saying. It's also time consuming, and there's a huge opportunity cost. And those things are key questions in my mind as to what each of you should be asking yourself. And ultimately, I think the primary question you need to ask is, what program will equip me to the greatest extent possible for obtaining the job that I desire to have at the conclusion of my 2 years or whatever it might be. And I feel very strongly about the Steer Center and our ability to reposition prior work experience, whether in real estate or not, into the careers that you would endeavor to have. And some of the principal reasons are, number one, it's just our location. So in the United States, there are six gateway real estate markets, which would be Boston, New York, obviously Washington, Chicago, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. And attending an MBA program within any of those 6 markets provides you uniqueness of opportunity that these smaller markets simply don't provide. The proximity to employers in Washington is tremendous. Every global investor has some sort of exposure to Washington, D.C., so they are always coming through the marketplace, as investors or having some interaction as part of the sort of the democratic process here, be it lobbying or whatnot. So I think one is, why MSB and Steers, it's obviously the gateway real estate market. I think we have the dominant academic brand in the marketplace, being the Washington, Virginia, Maryland marketplace. I think our brand is not only regionally dominant, but is also international in its recognition. And I think also we have a very highly applied approach to our educational process, which I think you will see here as we work through these slides. And that my prior experience, which we will talk about in a minute, is in the private sector. And I hired a lot of people in the private sector, both undergraduates and MBAs. And I think I know, frankly, what you guys need to know. And we have created and constructed a program that helps to equip you with that. So I think this level of application is essential and is a unique unique element of our approach. Can we get to the next slide, Amanda, please? Okay, so just by way of a personal background, very quickly. So again, my professional experience is with Invesco Real Estate. So I was in Dallas, and I worked there as the director of underwriting. I was a member of their investment committee. I was also a member of their investment strategy team. So I was part of a group that was responsible for charting our investment strategy as a firm. My role is really everything that we acquired in my tenure came through my team, and principally that team was comprised of young people such as yourselves who were charged with evaluating the asset from a physical perspective and a financial perspective and thinking about the risks and the attributes and the commensurate returns. So consequently, I think I really have a very good handle on sort of the bottom-up asset level analytics, as well as, by virtue of my investment committee seat and my investment strategy seat, the top-down questions such as why should we be investing in real estate, and what are the macroeconomic drivers of real estate, and how do we position ourselves as a result. And I was consistently employing young people throughout my professional career. I'm also currently on the board of a REIT. It's a medical office building REIT called Global Medical REIT. So I endeavor to stay current in the marketplace as well. So, the educational philosophy that I possess, and we generally possess here at the Steers Center, emanates from my experience in the private sector, in the sense that I never hired anyone because they went to a specific program, or they took a specific class, or they did a specific case. I never really cared about that. Because to me, that stuff is useful in some respects, but it's really, what is really valuable, I think, as you well know in your own professional careers, is what have you actually done from an experience perspective, and what can you do for me? And so our belief here is academic coursework is a component of this process, but by no means is it a standalone element And by no means do we feel that in and of itself will allow for our students to be employed in the companies that they endeavor to work for, because it's just not enough in this world. So, Amanda, can you advance, please? So let's talk about what I consider our portfolio approach to job placement. So if you think about constructing a real estate portfolio, you build it with various components so that you can get to whatever the risk-return trade-off that you're looking for. So we think about the education of our students in the exact same way. And very much like what I said earlier, that the academic coursework isn't the only thing, it's simply a component within this portfolio that hopefully, once it is taken in its entirety, will result in strong job placement. So naturally, academic coursework is the foundation for the portfolio. So we've built what we call the 4-quadrant curriculum, which all that simply reflects is, if you think about a 4-quadrant model, right, where you have basically 4 boxes, sort of 2 above 2 kind of a layout, that represents the real estate capital markets, in that you have 2 different sources of capital, which is the public market or the private market, and you have 2 different types of capital, which is either debt or equity. So the intersection of the public and private and debt and equity results in what is effectively real estate products. So public equity, for instance, is REITs. Public debt would be CMBS. Private equity is the direct investment in real estate. Private debt is simply you are a lender in some capacity, whether it be a first loan or a first lien position, or a mezzanine or a bridge lender of some regard. But regardless, we've created this curriculum that we think is very important to training our students, because in this world, in this environment today, it is a relative value game. So investors on a global scale are saying, when you look across the globe at the real estate assets available for purchase, what is the best risk return? So where is the best relative value? So for instance, a lot of capital has become increasingly interested in Europe. The banks have been much slower than in the U.S. to deal with some of their bad real estate loans. So there's a lot of capital flowing to Europe today, because they think the private debt product in Europe produces a better relative value, relative to buying office buildings in the U.S. or buying CMBS backed by office buildings in the U.S., whatever it might be. So our objective here with our academic coursework is to create this framework that would allow you to really understand the relative value game, and that you would really understand the 4 primary real estate products, and then start to think about how those come together in a mixed assets portfolio for investors like pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, endowments, foundations, whatever it might be. So the bedrock of what we do here is obviously the academic coursework. But upon that, we build other things, of which, so the real estate clinic is one. So if you think about, how do you train a doctor? How do you train a lawyer? How do you train a nurse? There's this core academic coursework, right? They're, sort of the basic coursework. But upon that, on top of that, you have a law clinic, you have a residency, you have a practicum, where you're actually doing work. So this isn't a simulation of work, this is real work. And we believe in the Steer Center that concept of this residency or this practicum or this law clinic isn't exclusive to those disciplines, and it's very applicable to real estate. And so we've created what we call the real estate clinic, because frankly, we think this case study method that is used ubiquitously within these MBA programs around the world, country, whatever, is highly outmoded. Those case studies end up being very clinical, in my opinion, in terms of the outcomes are somewhat scripted, and it's not real. It's a simulation of the real world as opposed to being the real world. So what we've done is we partnered with my prior employer, Invesco Real Estate, and to create an environment where our students are underwriting live deals. So what does that mean? So on a weekly basis, we get new transactions that are active in the marketplace that we have the opportunity as students to underwrite. And so what does that mean? So what that means is, to begin with, if it's a commercial deal, office, industrial, and retail, we get the broker's offering memorandum along with the Argus model. We have 5 commercial grade Argus enterprise license here. So the first step that we engage is employing the Invesco underwriting standards into the broker model. So we would update it for things like Invesco's rent growth, Invesco's approach to property tax underwriting, Invesco's approach to underwriting capital expenditures, whatever it might be, to get to a set of cash flows that has been what we call Invescoized, meaning simply the broker's optimistic assumptions have been moderated for assumptions that Invesco views to be more market-based. We then take those cash flows and export them into a Excel model that is Invesco's proprietary Excel model. All of our clinic participants sign non-disclosure agreements, and we then price the real estate asset, meaning determine what those cash flows are worth within the construct of this financial model. And then what we do is we basically write up what we call our screening committee memo, which is a 2-page document that effectively, and I have a phone call coming in, so I apologize if that's a problem, that effectively outlines for Invesco how we underwrote the revenue, how we underwrote the operating expenses, and how we underwrote the capital expenditures, and the 5 to 10 questions that we have as a result of reviewing the offering memorandum. So in short, you will be underwriting all 4 product types: office, industrial, apartments, and retail, and all across the country. And in my opinion, and in our opinion here, this clinic is a very good and effective tool in training our students in the area of essentially deal analysis and valuation. And we think about it as the natural extension of our academic coursework, and frankly, a unique element of our program that to my knowledge, doesn't exist within any other academic programs, MBA or other. But this is our analog, if you will, to case studies in the Harvard Business School case study, where we're actually doing real work and using offering memorandums on real deals as the basis of the class. If we can move on, please. So this portfolio approach also, as I mentioned earlier, includes just the immersion in our Washington, D.C. marketplace. So the thing that we really focus on a lot here is we want our students interning fall, spring, summer. This notion of a summer internship only, I think, is also outdated, in that if you are, especially if you are a career switcher, you need as much real experience as you can possibly get. So coming in as a first-year student, typically the fall semester is very busy, so we don't encourage anybody to get internships in the fall. But in the spring, we really encourage our students to get formal internships in the Washington, D.C. marketplace that may be different than the internship they have in the summer. And usually we kind of think about the fall and spring internships as more content-focused, and maybe the summer is more name-focused. So that you're adding legitimate experience to your resume. And by the way, we encourage also those students coming back for their second year, and especially in the fall semester, to intern again and potentially intern with another company. So in your 2 years here, you could conceivably have 3 different internship experiences, which again, when we think about this portfolio approach to job placement, that plays a huge role. So this immersion into Washington, D.C., by virtue of allowing our students to intern, in my opinion, is huge, and really is only rivaled by other programs within the gateway real estate markets that I outlined earlier. Obviously, within the Washington, D.C. marketplace, there's tons of events whether it be Urban Land Institute, the Association of Foreign Investors in Real Estate, or PRIA, whatever it might be. But all these trade associations are either based here in the way of ULI and AFIRE or have annual meetings here. So you can attend events almost every night to the extent you have time and interest, which allows for a robust ability to network. And I think we all know that the job placement process is not linear, similar to other disciplines like investment banking, where there's a path that's very clear and consistent for obtaining job placement. The real estate roles come through much more of a network-oriented approach, and we think our students are very, very well positioned as a result of being here. So we're also big fans of our alumni and corporate sponsorship. So we have a very strong alumni group. Our Steer Center Board of Advisors, that's comprised principally of alumni, is inclusive of about 45 members, plus or minus a couple. So despite the Steer Center really only coming into formal existence back in 2012, we've been producing alumni who have very senior roles at real estate companies for the last several decades. And I would love to talk to you about examples of who those folks are, such that I don't believe we're at any disadvantage from an alumni level, just given who we have engaged and who's out there. We also have something called the Hoya Corporate Cornerstone, which is essentially a corporate partnership program that has worked really well on the job placement side. You can see the companies we have involved here. Avalon Bay is probably the best example of a company who does it really well, and that we're engaged with them. In fact, Tim Naughton, who's their CEO, will be teaching a real estate development course for our MBA students in the spring. And they've sent a number of their current employees here to get their MBA, and we've sent a number of students back to them. So there's a really nice symbiotic relationship with firms that are on our Hoya Corporate Cornerstone. Next slide, please. So, one of the things that I think is a strength of ours is, by virtue of Bob Steers, who is of Cohen and Steers, who is really a pioneer in the REIT investment world, we're able to access almost anybody on the planet from a real estate standpoint. So we have an event every spring, and we'd love for you to attend if you're interested, here in Washington, called the Real Estate Luminaries event. And it's our opportunity to bring together very, very senior people in the real estate space and bring them here to campus to interact with our students. So examples of prior speakers, prior luminaries, has been Jonathan Gray of Blackstone, Tom Barrick of Colony. This past April, we had Rick Clark of Brookfield, David Simon, of Simon Property, have all been here and been our luminary. This coming April, we have Debbie Kafara, who runs Ventas, which is one of the largest healthcare REITs in the country. Excuse me, as our speaker. Excuse me. So from a standpoint of getting the people that are changing and shaping the industry today to campus, we are at least as competitive, if not more so, than any other real estate program in the country. Some other things that I think are very important to us that are distinguishers in this portfolio approach to job placement is we're very serious about the global piece. I'm sure you've heard, or you will hear about the global business experience, where you do consulting projects as part of your curriculum here. But the Steer Center has a specific global aspect where we take MBA students on career treks. The last 2 years have been in London. We started in Bogota, but we will intend to go back. It actually, it doesn't show 2016. We went to London in 2016 and 2017. We'll be there again in April of 2018, and the objective is to continue to go there or other European markets. For instance, we're actually discussing going to Berlin at some point as well. So you get exposure to companies, you get exposure to alumni, you get exposure to a tremendous wealth of opportunities as a result of being here. And the last thing I'll say, at least on this portfolio approach, I think anyway, I can't recall what the next slide is, but is our size. So the MBA program full time is plus or minus, 250 people plus or minus. And my objective as a center is to only be about 10% of that in any given class. So we'll obviously have 25 people that are focused in real estate in any one class. And I frankly, I love that. And I think you should love that. And the reason is because every one of the faculty members here becomes familiar with you as a person. We care about you as a person. We care about your job placements. We have numerous conversations throughout your entirety of your time here as well as after about how do we get you where you want to be? Where do you want to work from a geographic perspective? What's the disciplines that you're most focused in? And so that we can be familiar with who you are and what you want when employers come to us inevitably and say, we're looking for people to fill this role. So we believe individuals matter, you matter. This is a huge investment, and we take that trust very, very seriously. And we create what we believe is a fairly customized approach to helping you reach your goals. And so there are very large programs around the country. Some are higher ranked than us, but I can tell you for a fact you would never be treated better in any of those programs than you would here, because there's a very limited number of people by design pursuing real estate at Georgetown. Can we get to the next slide, please, Amanda? So, let's talk about job placement. So, job placement is our primary focus. So we always start there and work backwards. So we have these whiteboarding exercises when you arrive, where we sit down with you as a singular individual and we map out your 2-year time horizon here, and we start with May of whatever your graduation year is, and we say, what does perfect execution look like? Where do you want to be geographically? What types of companies do you want to work for? Help us understand, back to this customized approach, what perfect execution looks like. And then let us step backwards in time to where we are now and talk about, well, who should you be networking with? What companies should you be targeting for an internship? Can we pair you with a specific mentor that has some sort of connectivity with the companies that you're interested in? So let's really think about how we build you into this person that 2 years from now will allow you to execute at the level that you want to execute. So this is a very short list of who recruits here and who hires here. This list, we're fortunate enough, it seems to grow every day. And I say that with complete sincerity and not bravado, because this employment piece is job one for us, and we definitely believe we care about it more than anybody else in the country right now. Because if you come here and we can't place you in the job that you want, assuming you contribute the time and energy it takes to basically partner with us, we're not long for this world as a program. So we see this as the ultimate, most important aspect. And we don't turn this over to our career services group. So for instance, we have an event this Friday, and if you're in Washington, you'd be certainly welcome to come, where it's essentially interview preparation for real estate interviews. And I am literally myself doing the program because it's essentially me that is orchestrating this. So we have 2 panels on Friday. The first panel is a panel of HR professionals of really high quality real estate companies locally, where I will ask them all the questions that you likely can't, such as how do you negotiate salary? If you have an offer that in hand, but you're waiting on another offer that you really prefer, how do you stall? What are the questions that you have that typically you just can't answer and you can't ask? So that panel is followed by a panel of alumni professionals in the industry that are going to also do the same sort of thing in terms of how do you best prepare for the real estate interview? What are examples of the technical questions that get asked during a real estate interview? How best can I position myself within an organization for the real estate interview? All those sorts of things that we think once the student actually has the real interview will put them, will allow them to shine relative to their competition. So we care a ton about this job placement piece. Next slide, please. So just some other key things we want to talk about. We have a what we call the Poland Fellowship. In fact, I just put out the request for proposals yesterday, and essentially what this is open to up to 5 second-year MBA students. These are 5 $10,000 scholarships that are awarded to MBA students here that are really leading the cause of real estate. So these typically go to the president of the real estate club that is hustling to advance real estate here, to build bridges to companies, to help recruit high-quality students, to all those sorts of things. So this is one incentive, if you will, that we use to recruit talent. And I should also say we are the only center or initiative here at Georgetown McDonough that gives scholarships on the front end. So typically what we try to find is recruit those students with really strong backgrounds in real estate to serve as a bit of the foundation and the keystone or the cornerstone for any new incoming class. And so we offer, I think we offer something like, I'll say $60,000 annually in total support. We usually break that up across 2 or 3 people, but we're the only program that does that at McDonough. The MBA obviously gives money as a general sort of pool, but the Steer Center is the only one that gives very specifically to an academic discipline. So we also have something called the Georgetown Real Estate Alliance, which is a New York-based alumni program. The cornerstone of that alliance is what we call our mentorship program. So we have something like 40 alumni who are paired with both undergraduate and MBA students that is really focused on helping our students get jobs. So I would encourage you to take a look at that website. It could be a touch dated because we're kind of relying on alumni support to help get that updated. But it's very strong in New York. We do a ton of case competitions. We have something called MREC First, which is the McDonough Real Estate Case Competition that's already happened. It occurs in early October, and it's an internal-only case competition, and it's meant to give our students a taste of what these case competitions are like, and they're structured exactly the same way as the University of Texas case competition, as well as the UNC Chapel Hill case competition, 2 of the preeminent MBA real estate case competitions in the country. And as I like to say with MREC is that's our family, and we make our mistakes in the family. So we allow ourselves to learn here first before we go out and compete on a national level. We also have, even though one bullet point doesn't do it justice, we have a robust graduate level real estate club that's always doing things. So there's a lot there, and I would love to put you in touch with the leadership of that club if you're interested in learning more. Next slide, please. So a lot of our first-year students say, well, what are the requirements to succeed? So I hear what you're saying about, we'll start 2 years from now with what perfect execution is, and we'll work backwards. But what should we be doing in the meantime to help us get help ensure the highest probability of success? And these are just a couple of thoughts, and I frankly think they're probably consistent a number of schools, except in very specific areas here. But I would say you need to get on board as quick as you can. So some students come here without certainty as to what they're interested in doing and pursuing from an academic perspective. And those students that are unsure of whether or not real estate is for them, that wait to really get fully on board until well into their spring semester, don't do as well. So those individuals that come here and say, I'm here in the fall or I'm early fall and I'm focused on real estate and I'm going to get fully involved, they, in almost every instance, have the highest probability of success. because they're active participants in all these real estate activities, whether it's the club activities, whether it's the center activities, but they are present and actively involved. This successful person takes full advantage of the clinic. So the clinic effectively is a real estate elective, or is an elective generally. And you can take the clinic 4 individual mods. So if we have, our 4 academic, classes in the way of the 4-quadrant curriculum, so that you have those 4 classes, you can add 4 classes of the clinic as well. So you could theoretically walk out of here with 8 unique courses in real estate, plus some additional coursework around the margins, like the real estate development class that we're offering as sort of the what we would call the class we offer sort of over spring break, or more of this concentrated learning experience. So you could get anywhere in the order of 8 to 10 real estate courses in your MBA here. Those students who succeed get on board very quickly and identify externships, these job opportunities that occur during the fall and the spring. These people that succeed will network their butt off. And I always talk about making this a non-official class. So think about networking like like you would a class, right? So what is the strategy that you have, and how do you execute that strategy? So that that your networking takes on a very structured approach, rather than in somewhat of an informal, undisciplined process. And I also think it's important to make a favorable impression on the faculty, because we likely are the first people to hear about jobs. And so consequently, those people that are very engaged with the real estate center, are involved in the club, are really demonstrating themselves as leaders, they get first dibs in terms of opportunities, because we want to reward those people that are helping us on the heavy lift here. So we believe these are very important components to succeed here. Next slide. So you're certainly welcome to reach out to me. My email address is simply matthew.cypher, CYPHER, at georgetown.edu. You can go to global real estate at georgetown.edu, or I'm sorry, globalrealestate.georgetown.edu, which is our website. I would love to chat with you specifically. We're very focused on recruiting the very highest quality prospective students here as we possibly can, and I really appreciate you all jumping on this webinar. So this is the general MBA contact information, and then you see the round 2 deadline. But Amanda, I think that covers me.
Great, thank you. I don't know if we have time for some questions, maybe, if people want to chat those in or use the question and answer feature.
Yeah, I would be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Yeah, feel free to chat those in, and we can answer them that way. All right, looks like we did get a question about the event on Friday, whether it would be open, and kind of what are the details for that.
Sure. Well, I would say email me. I can send you an Eventbrite link. So again, so Matthew, MATTHEW.CYPHER at georgetown.edu. Shoot me a note. You would be most welcome. There's a continental breakfast beforehand. It runs from 9 to noon on Friday.
Great. And then if you have any other questions, feel free to chat those in. Okay, we got one about how do evening program students get involved in the program?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. So the evening students, in my opinion, presents maybe I would say one of the best opportunities for growth within the STEER Center, because there's a lot of those students that are within real estate jobs already that frankly don't want to leave, but they want to get an MBA. That's a strike zone for us. There's other students who work in unrelated fields that are just interested in transitioning. So all of our courses essentially are offered in the evening. So all of our 4-quadrant coursework is accessible at night. The real estate clinic, while is held during the day, it's held during the day from 12:30 to 1:50. And we've been very successful with students who will effectively use this webinar interface for the clinic. So just as an example, we start Mod 2 clinic tomorrow. The instructor of that clinic is a gentleman who used to be an asset manager for Invesco. He lives in Dallas, and the entirety of the class, both full-time and evening, are going to use the Zoom interface for the course. So there will be no in-person in coursework, so, or classroom, if you will. So that then, of course, you have to find time from 12:30 to 1:50. But what we found is the EPs are able to orchestrate their lunch around that, and that the clinic formally meets one time a week. So you're asking for effectively an hour and 50 minutes for the clinic one time a week, where you have to actually be engaged. All of our events, we have a number of events that are held on Saturday and Sunday. So for instance, this Saturday, we have a joint venture, or I think it's Sunday actually, a joint venture waterfall, financial modeling class that's taught by a gentleman who works for King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, which is the 3rd largest endowment in the world. And we've done Argus training on Saturday, and so we try to do a lot of our extracurricular stuff on the weekends. So I'm very sensitive to involving the evening program students, because I think that it's a win for everybody, especially those that are in real estate. Our existing students, the full-time students, benefit tremendously from their involvement. So it's a great question and something I'm highly sensitive to.
All right, looks like we got another question about about more information about the trek to Bogota, and is this something that maybe we'll do next year?
Yeah, so you are unmuted by host. Okay. The Bogota trip was the inaugural MBA career trek. And we went to Bogota because one of our MBA students is from Bogota, and her family is in real estate. So she was able to set this up very easily. We went to Bogota in 2015. We've been in London ever since. We see London as a little bit more of a likely place for us to go with some degree of frequency, because Bogota, albeit it would be great to go to Bogota, is not exactly a world market when it comes to real estate. So I would envision the trip being held. It's been held every spring since 2015. It will continue to be so. That's a part of our program that is institutionalized. And by the way, we have had evening students that go on that trip as well. But if it's not in London, the only other location we're talking about is going to Berlin. So I don't know if that helps. And the gentleman, or the person, excuse me, I shouldn't have assumed that, that asked the question about the evening programs and how they, or the evening students and how they fare in the program, also asked how many students have a background in real estate already. And so I'm assuming that pertains to the real estate, to the evening program students. And I would say it's split. There's a number of evening students that don't have backgrounds in real estate, or it may be somewhat allied backgrounds in real estate. So for instance, we have a number of people that work for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac that they're really not doing real estate jobs, despite the fact that they're effectively working for a real estate company. But we've been very successful, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with a couple of them at essentially being able to leverage that experience into a more of a real estate heavy role.
Awesome. Looks like we have another question about, I'm not sure, if are students able to take classes through the School of Continuing Studies Masters in Real Estate program?
The short answer is yes.
Okay, great.
But the way it works, though, for us is each individual course, and it's not just for the Masters in Real Estate, it's for anybody taking classes in the continuing study school. It needs to be approved in a one-off basis.
Right. Yeah, you would work with your student services program advisor on that. The other question we have is, it says there's a discussion, we are close to a cyclical high in real estate in general, so how might a potential correction in the market affect recruiting?
It's a great question, and one of the prayers that I say every day is I got to keep this cycle with me. And so the cycle, who's to say where we are? I mean, I'm not even going to start to opine. I mean, some people said we're not as deep as what everybody thinks we are. But so regardless, if there's a cycle correction, there's going to be an adjustment in hiring. It's not just for real estate, by the way. Every single discipline largely will have some impact. And so it would pertain to everybody. Now, having been in a private sector company and having been in that company during the most significant downturn of anybody's, recent, memory, we didn't do a whole lot of hiring. So there's always that risk. And that's something that only you can really fully gauge as to whether or not that is a risk that you would like to take. But I don't see that as specific to real estate. I see that as, investment banks aren't going to be adding anybody to their FIG group if there's a downturn, right? So maybe, I don't know. But I do worry about it. Now, the hope is, well, what are you doing to sort of prepare yourself for that? Well, inevitably what happens during those periods is there's a focus more on, workout strategies. Asset management becomes a much more important function rather than acquisition. So, we have continued to incorporate that kind of content within our curriculum. But as I said, there's no guarantee that you come to Georgetown and so you focus on the Steer Center, and if there's a correction, you're insulated from any employment impact, because that's just how things that would impact any discipline. So it's a very good question, Neil. I wish I had a better answer. Let's just hope for the near term we continue to see a strong marketplace.
All right, do you have any other questions? Feel free to chat those in. All right, looks like that might be it in terms of questions. So thank you so much again, Matt, for hosting this webinar. This has been great. We have our contact information there. If you have any further questions, we'd be happy to pass those off to Matt as well, although he has shared his email address too, which is awesome. So yeah, thank you so much, Matt. And with that, I think we'll wrap up.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys and gals. And if there's anything I can do, don't hesitate to reach out, because we care about you and we want you here at Georgetown. So thank you very much for attending our webinar.
Awesome. Thank you and have a great afternoon.